"Jamie, it's me. Your dad," the man at my doorstep said, his voice trembling like he wasn't sure if I'd slam the door or let him in. I stood frozen, my hand gripping the doorknob so tightly I could feel the metal digging into my skin. It had been 20 years since I'd last seen him, 2 decades since he packed his bags and left us behind. And now here he was, standing on my porch like he had any right to be there. "My name is Jamie Gardner. I'm 30 years old and I'm an engineer. For as long as I can remember, my life has been about solving problems, calculating angles, balancing loads, figuring out what works and what doesn't. But the one thing I could never figure out was why my dad left us when I was 10 years old. My mom, Carolina, worked herself to the bone to keep us fed and housed after he walked out. My brother Stan struggled with depression, and my sister Juliet grew up way too fast trying to fill in the gaps. And me? I built walls, buried the pain, and told myself we didn't need him. Until now. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice colder than I expected. He looked at me, his face weathered and lined, and for a moment, he almost seemed ashamed. But then he let out a sigh and stepped back, as if he was trying to gather himself. "Jamie, I just want to talk. To explain," he said, his hands fidgeting nervously. "I know I made mistakes, but I'm trying to make things right." I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "Make things right? After 20 years? Where were you when Mom couldn't afford groceries? Or when Stan needed therapy? Or when Juliet cried herself to sleep because she thought it was her fault you left?" His shoulders slumped, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret, maybe. "I didn't mean for things to get so bad," he said quietly. I wasn't in a good place back then." "Well," I said, my voice sharp, "we weren't in a good place either, but we didn't get to walk away from it." I stood in the doorway, staring at the man who once called himself my dad, and the memories came rushing back, clearer than they had been in years. It wasn't like my dad left out of nowhere. The weeks leading up to that night were filled with tension, arguments that seemed to grow louder with each passing day. Even at 10 years old, I could feel the weight of it, hanging over the house like a storm cloud. My mom and my dad fought about everything: money, the bills, the stress of raising 3 kids. The fights would start quietly, but they never stayed that way. I'd hear their voices through the walls at night, rising and falling like waves crashing against the shore. My mom would plead with him, her voice breaking. "Paul, we're a family. We're supposed to handle this together." "I can't, Carolina," my dad would snap back. "Every day, it's the same. The bills, the stress. I'm drowning here. I need space." "What about the kids, Paul?" my mom said one night, her voice quieter but sharp with frustration. "Do you think they don't notice? Do you think this doesn't affect them?" Those words stuck with me. For days afterward, my dad seemed distant, quieter, like he was already halfway out the door. Then, one night, he came into my room. I was brushing my hair, getting ready for bed when he sat on the edge of my bed. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly, his voice gentle in a way that felt strange. "I just wanted to say goodbye." "Where are you going?" I asked, confused. "I'm heading out for a while," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'll see you soon, okay?" But soon never came. That was the last time I saw him until now, standing on my doorstep like 20 years hadn't passed. I tightened my grip on the doorframe, the memories swirling as I stared at him. He looked older, thinner, his face lined with years that clearly hadn't been kind. Part of me wanted to shut the door and never look back, but another part, the part that remembered how much my brother missed him, how hard my mom had worked to fill the void he left, kept me standing there. "Why now?" I finally asked, my voice colder than I expected. "After all this time, why are you here?" He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck like he always used to when he didn't know what to say. "Jamie, I know it's been a long time and I can't change that. I just want to talk, to reconnect. I'm not asking for anything else." I let out a sharp breath, my chest tightening. "I can't do this right now," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I really can't. He nodded slowly, his eyes dropping to the ground. I understand. I'll give you some time, he said, taking a step back. But I'm coming back in a few days. I hope you'll let me in then. I didn't respond, didn't nod or shake my head. I just stood there as he walked down the steps and disappeared into the night, leaving me frozen in the doorway, my thoughts spinning out of control. As soon as I closed the door, I grabbed my phone and called my mom. My hands were shaking, and my mind was racing, but I needed to hear her voice. She picked up on the second ring. "Jamie? What's wrong?" she asked, her voice instantly concerned. "He showed up," I blurted out. "My dad. He was at my house just now." There was a pause on the other end, and when she spoke again, her tone was firm. "He came here last week." I stopped pacing. "What? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to upset you," my mom said with a sigh. "He said he wanted to talk, to reconnect. I told him no. I told him it's too late for that." "And then what?" I asked, gripping the phone tightly. "He left," she said quietly. "But Jamie, listen to me. You don't owe him anything. Don't let him twist things and make you feel guilty. He made his choice when he walked out that door 20 years ago." Her words should have comforted me, but instead they stirred up even more emotions. "He said he's coming back in a few days," I said softly. My mom sighed again. "Just be careful. Don't let him get into your head. You're stronger than that, Jamie." I nodded even though she couldn't see me, her words settling over me like a heavy weight. I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to face this. After hanging up with my mom, I immediately called my brother. I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that if my dad had shown up at my place and my mom's, it was only a matter of time before he found Stan or Juliet. Stan picked up after a few rings, his voice groggy. "Jamie, what's going on?" "Stan, has Dad shown up at your place?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause before he replied. "Dad? No. Why would he... Wait, are you saying he's been trying to see you?" "He was just here," I said, pacing my living room. "And Mom said he showed up at her place last week." Stan exhaled sharply. "No, he hasn't come here, but... God, Jamie, just hearing that makes me feel sick. I don't know what I'd do if I saw him. What does he even want?" "He says he wants to reconnect," I muttered, the words tasting bitter as I said them. "Reconnect?" Stan scoffed, his tone sharp. "Where was he when we needed him? He doesn't get to just come back and pretend we're a family." I swallowed hard and ended the call, dialing Juliet next. She answered almost immediately. "Hey, Jamie, what's up?" "Juliet, has Dad come to your place?" I asked quickly. She sounded surprised. "No, why? Did he come to yours?" "Yes, and Mom's too," I said. "I'm worried he might show up at your door next." "Well, if he does, he won't get far," Juliet said, her voice hard. "I don't have anything to say to him. He lost that right a long time ago." Her words lingered even after we hung up, and I felt the weight of their reactions pressing down on me. My dad hadn't reached them yet, but it was clear that if he did, he wouldn't find the welcome he was looking for. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a text from Stan. It was short, but the words hit me like a ton of bricks. "Can we talk? It's about Dad." I sighed, already bracing myself for whatever this was going to be. When I called him, he answered right away. "Jamie, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think we should meet him. Just once. All of us," he said, his voice shaky. "Stan, are you serious?" I asked, my frustration bubbling up. "You really think one meeting is going to fix 20 years of nothing?" "No," he admitted. "I don't think it'll fix anything. But I can't stop thinking about it, about him, about all the questions I have." He paused, and I could hear the strain in his voice. I need some kind of closure, Jamie. Don't you?" I didn't respond right away. Instead, I asked, "Did you call Mom? Juliet?" "I did," he said quietly. Mom said no. Juliet said hell no. But I'm asking you because I don't think I can face him alone. Please, Jamie. Just one meeting. If it's terrible, we never have to see him again. I closed my eyes, his words swirling in my head. I didn't know if I had it in me to sit across from my dad and listen to whatever excuse he had for abandoning us. But hearing the pain in Stan's voice made it harder to flat out refuse. Let me think about it, I said finally, my voice tight. I'll call you back. Okay, he said softly. Thank you. As I hung up, I stared at my phone, torn between anger, guilt, and the tiniest sliver of curiosity. Did I owe Stan this? Or was this just another chance for my dad to hurt us all over again? A few evenings later, we all gathered at my mom's house. The air was thick with tension as we sat in the living room. My mom was in her favorite armchair, her expression calm but firm. Juliet sat on the couch, her arms crossed tightly, making it clear she had already made up her mind. Stan sat across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, clearly trying to convince himself this meeting would go well. I stayed quiet, perched on the edge of the love seat, unsure where this was all heading. Stan cleared his throat. Look, I know this is a hard topic for all of us, but I've been thinking about it, and I feel like we should meet him, just once, hear him out. My mom shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. Stan, I understand why you feel that way, but I can't do it. I've made my peace with the fact that your dad walked out on us, and I don't need to rehash it with him now. Juliet scoffed, glaring at Stan. Mom's right. He doesn't deserve the time of day from any of us. He abandoned us, Stan. Why do you even want to see him? Stan straightened up, frustration flashing across his face. Because I need to know why, Juliet. Why he left, why he thought we weren't worth staying for. You might not care, but I do. I need to hear it, even if it's a lie. My mom sighed, her face softening. Stan, I understand that this is something you need to do, but don't expect him to give you the answers you're looking for. People like him, they don't always tell the truth. I glanced at Juliet, whose face was set in stone. I'm not going, she said firmly. And honestly, I don't think either of you should. But if you're determined to put yourself through that, don't say I didn't warn you. Stan turned to me, his eyes pleading. Jamie, what about you? Will you come with me? I don't want to face him alone. I hesitated, glancing at my mom, whose gaze was heavy with worry. Finally, I nodded. I'll go, I said quietly. But only to make sure he doesn't try to pull anything. We go, we listen, and if he steps out of line, we're done. Agreed? Stan nodded, relief washing over his face. My mom sighed again, her voice soft but firm. Be careful, you two. Don't let him get into your heads. He's good at that. Juliet didn't say another word, just shook her head in frustration. I couldn't tell if we were making a mistake, but one thing was clear. This wasn't going to be easy. That evening, just as I was finishing cleaning up after dinner, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, my dad stood there again, his shoulders hunched as if he expected me to slam the door in his face. Jamie, he said softly, his eyes searching mine. I know I shouldn't have come again, but I really need to talk. Just one chance, that's all I'm asking. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. You can't keep showing up like this, I said, trying to keep my frustration in check. But fine, we'll meet. Saturday afternoon, Brookside Park, 2:00. It'll be me and Stan. Mom and Juliet aren't coming. He blinked, clearly surprised but nodding quickly. Okay, that's fine, I understand. I'll be there. Good, I said firmly. But let's be clear, this isn't a reunion, it's a conversation. We'll hear what you have to say, but that's it. I appreciate it, Jamie, he said, his voice low and almost shaky. Thank you. I mean it. I nodded, stepping back. Saturday, I repeated before closing the door. As I stood there in the quiet of my house, I felt the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I wasn't sure what Stan or I expected to get out of this, but one thing was clear. My dad wasn't walking away this time without facing the family he left behind. The days leading up to Saturday felt like they stretched on forever. I tried to keep myself busy, work projects, cleaning the house, even reorganizing my bookshelves. But no matter what I did, my thoughts kept drifting back to the meeting. What was I even hoping to get out of it? An explanation? An apology? Did I even want those things? Or was I just doing this for Stan? Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be my dad canceling or Stan second-guessing the whole thing. But the messages I got were mundane. Reminders from work, a notification about a sale at the grocery store, and a single one from Stan. Still on for Saturday? By Friday night, the nervous energy was unbearable. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, debating whether to call Stan and tell him I'd changed my mind, but I knew I wouldn't. I'd made a promise, to him and to myself, to see this through. Still, the weight of it pressed down on me, making every minute feel like an hour. When Saturday finally came, I woke up early, unable to stay in bed any longer. I spent the morning pacing, drinking too much coffee, and going over what I might say. As the clock inched closer to 2, I grabbed my coat, took a deep breath, and headed out the door. Whatever was waiting for me at the park, I knew there was no turning back now. At 1:15, I pulled up outside my brother's apartment. Stan was already waiting on the curb, pacing back and forth, his hands stuffed into his jacket pockets. He looked up as I parked and climbed into the passenger seat. "Hey," he said, his voice tight. "Hey," I replied, glancing at him as I pulled back onto the road. "You ready for this?" "Not even a little," he admitted with a nervous laugh. "But I guess that's the point, right? We're not supposed to be ready for stuff like this." I nodded, gripping the wheel a little tighter. "Do you want to grab a coffee or something? We've got time." "Yeah, that'd be good," Stan said quickly, as though anything that delayed the inevitable was a good idea. We stopped at a Starbucks drive-thru, and as we waited for our turn, the silence in the car felt heavy. "What are you thinking?" I finally asked. "I don't know," he said, staring out the window. "I'm scared. Not just of what he's going to say, but of what it's going to do to me, you know? Like, what if I leave this meeting feeling worse than I already do?" I handed him his coffee when we got to the window and pulled back onto the road. "I've been asking myself the same thing all week," I said honestly. "But we're doing this together, Stan. If it's bad, we walk away and we don't look back. Agreed?" He nodded, clutching the cup like it was an anchor. "Agreed." As we approached the park, my heart started pounding. It wasn't just about facing our dad. It was about facing everything he'd left behind. When we arrived at the park, we spotted him sitting on a bench near the pond, his hands folded tightly in his lap. He looked up as we approached, his face lighting up with a tentative smile. Stan and I exchanged a glance, and without saying a word, we walked over and sat down on the bench across from him. The air between us was heavy, the kind of silence that begged to be broken, but no one wanted to be the first to speak. My dad cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice quiet but earnest. "I wasn't sure if you would." Stan leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "We almost didn't," he said bluntly, his tone edged with the pain he'd been carrying for years. "So, here we are. What do you want, Dad?" Our dad winced at the word dad, like he wasn't sure he still had the right to hear it. "I don't want anything except a chance to explain," he said, his hands fidgeting in his lap. "I know I hurt all of you. I know I let you down in ways I can never take back, but I want you to understand that it wasn't because I didn't love you." I shook my head, my jaw tightening. "Then what was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it sure felt like you didn't." He looked at me, his eyes heavy with something that might have been regret. "I was drowning, Jamie. I felt like I was failing at everything. Work, being a husband, being a father. I thought if I left, it would be better for all of you. That I was the problem. Stan's voice cracked as he cut in. Better? You thought leaving us with nothing, making Mom work herself into the ground was better? Do you have any idea what that did to us? My dad's shoulders slumped, and he looked down at his hands. I know it doesn't make sense now. I was selfish. I thought I was doing you a favor by staying away. A favor? I said, my voice rising. Mom couldn't pay the rent, Stan needed therapy, and Juliet cried herself to sleep for months. That was your idea of a favor? He swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. I was wrong. I see that now. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I wanted the chance to tell you that I'm sorry. Stan let out a bitter laugh, sitting back on the bench. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't make up for 20 years of nothing. I felt a lump rise in my throat, my own anger swirling with the pain I'd tried to bury for so long. You know what's hard about this? I said, my voice shaking. It's that we didn't have a choice. We couldn't leave. We had to stay and deal with everything you walked away from. And now you're here acting like showing up is some kind of redemption. It's not. My dad nodded slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks. I know, but I couldn't go another day without at least trying to tell you that I'm sorry. I've thought about all of you every single day. Stan stood abruptly, his voice trembling. Well, we didn't have the luxury of just thinking about you. We had to live it, Dad. I stayed seated, my hands clenched in my lap, watching the man who had shaped so much of my life through his absence. The silence stretched on, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on all of us. The conversation continued, but it felt like we were running in circles. My dad kept saying how sorry he was, how he regretted every decision that led him to leave. Stan fired back with sharp words about how his absence had torn us apart, and I sat there, feeling the cracks in my own resolve widen with every word. I don't know what you expect from us, I said finally, cutting through the tension. Do you think hearing sorry is going to change anything? We've lived 20 years without you. We figured it out. We don't need you now. My dad's face crumpled, but I kept going, my voice steady despite the weight of my words. You weren't there when we needed you. Not for Mom, not for Stan, not for Juliet, not for me. And now you want to come back, but it's too late. Stan exhaled sharply and glanced at me, his eyes filled with the same mix of emotions I felt: anger, sadness, and finally, understanding. He nodded almost imperceptibly, and in that moment, we both realized the truth. This was over. Our lives had moved on without our dad, and nothing he said or did now could change that. Dad, Stan said, his voice quieter now. I wanted this meeting because I thought it might give me some kind of closure, but the truth is I don't need anything from you anymore. We've already closed that chapter, whether you were ready for it or not. I looked at my dad, who seemed smaller than ever, his shoulders slumped and his hands trembling. I don't hate you, I said softly, surprising myself. But there's no place for you in our lives anymore. I'm sorry, but it's too late. He opened his mouth as if to respond, but no words came. After a long, heavy silence, he nodded, his gaze dropping to the ground. I understand, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Stan stood, and I followed. Without another word, we turned and walked away, leaving him on the bench. The drive back to Stan's place was quiet, the kind of silence that felt heavy but necessary. Neither of us reached for the radio or tried to fill the space with small talk. I kept my eyes on the road, the hum of the engine the only sound between us. Stan stared out the window, and I glanced at him briefly, wondering what was running through his mind, but I didn't ask. I think we both needed time to process what had just happened, to let the weight of it settle. When I pulled up outside his apartment, he finally broke the silence. Thanks for coming with me, he said quietly, his voice rough. I don't think I could have done that alone. I nodded, offering a small, tight smile. We did what we could. Now we move on. He hesitated, then nodded too, opening the door and stepping out. Take care of yourself, Jamie, he said, his eyes meeting mine for a moment, before he closed the door and headed inside. As I drove home, the quiet followed me, but it felt different now, less heavy, more final. We'd faced our past, and while it didn't feel good, it felt like something we needed to do. Now it was time to keep moving forward. Hey there! Did you like the story? If you did, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot and makes sure you won't miss out on more great stories we share here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.